Biden has a sad. He wanted to stay in the race before Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats threw him out in a coup. He thinks he could have beaten Donald Trump. Yeah, so the guy's more delusional than ever. Here is what The Guardian is reporting, saying that he reportedly regrets ending his re-election campaign. I could have beaten Trump. But what is so interesting about this story is not that the president is delusional. He's been delusional for 4 years. So what's a couple days? But he also is now admitting, I think he's starting to talk. Joe Biden is getting a little bit communicative in these final days. And he's talking a bunch. And now people are reporting that he's upset with Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States. Why would he be upset with Garland? Because Garland didn't take out Trump. That's why they picked Garland. Go in there and weaponize the DOJ, which of course he did, but he didn't do it to the satisfaction of Joe. So here's the report. It says, Biden regrets having pulled out of the presidential race. He didn't really pull out. Okay, they gave him no choice. Nancy Pelosi and everybody else went in there. They read him the riot act, and then he was gone. He was saying, and Karine was saying, he's not going anywhere. Even though his polls were like, brr. Despite negative poll indications, they say he's upset about it. President has reportedly also said he made a mistake in choosing Garland as the attorney general. How come? Reflecting that Garland was slow to prosecute Trump. That's right. Which is an admission that you hired him to take out your political opponent for his role in the J6 insurrection, so-called, while Biden said that they prosecuted my boy, Hunter. Why'd you spend all your time going after my son while you didn't go after Trump hard enough? The guy is gone, okay? Somebody needs to get him a copy of the Marco Polo USA.org report, the report on the Biden laptop. If Joe saw that, man, he'd probably just sit at a window for even longer than he usually sits at windows, staring outside. Because Hunter should have been charged with a lot more than his little gun charge and his little tax charge. Don't act like the DOJ was aggressively prosecuting him. They were covering it up for years. Slow rolling it is the strategy. And they had a diversion deal wrapped up until the whistleblowers thankfully popped out. So the DOJ was doing nothing essentially against Hunter while they were raiding Trump's residence with an illegitimate prosecutor. How can you get more aggressive than appointing an illegitimate prosecutor who doesn't even pass constitutional muster to go and raid your opponent, but not just your opponent's wife and son? Go in there and go through their closets. Get whatever they've got in there. With just more than 3 weeks of a single-term presidency remaining, and it can't go fast enough. Come on! Like, it's the slowest countdown ever. All these days, they take forever. And meanwhile, Joe Biden is just giving billions more to Ukraine as we sit here. Biden's reported rueful reflections are revealed in the Washington Post profile that contains the clearest signs yet that he thinks he erred in withdrawing his candidacy, saying the president stepped aside to be replaced by Kamala, who's terrible. Harris's ascent to the top led to a surge of joy and enthusiasm and improved poll numbers, which was all fake. It was all fake. And we were calling it out from the very beginning. But they were excited with themselves because they didn't have a political person who had touched them in that way over the last 4 years. And Kamala at least was like semi-animated, a little kind of. While Biden and his aides have been careful not to blame Harris, oops, they are, they apparently believe the result would have been different if Joe would have stayed in the race. It is my view, and it's a view disputed by many Harris supporters who blame the president for waiting too long for withdrawing. They also point out that Biden's determination to seek a second term violated his promise to be a transitional figure who would just come in for the 4 years. Yeah, right. He ran on the promise that he was going to be a transitional person, and then we had to transition him ourselves. I think his running again broke that concept, and the outgoing president's misgivings over Garland, here we go, are poignant, given that he announced him as Attorney General the day after Trump's J6 attack. At the time, Biden said Garland is going to restore honor and independence. After J6, he was going to come in and clean all this up. Biden told Garland, "Your loyalty is not to me, it's to the law, to the Constitution, to the people of this nation." And then Garland crapped all over it all. But according to the Post, Biden had to be persuaded by his chief of staff, Ron Klain, to choose Garland, at the time best known as Barack Obama's failed SCOTUS appointee. Garland's never going to be on the Supreme Court. Biden's political allies had pressed the case for Doug Jones, another Democrat senator from Alabama, saying he would be better able to go after his opponents. But Klain said, shout out to Ron Klain, he picked Garland, who's a political hack anyways, but at least he didn't pick a worse political hack, arguably. As events, although I don't know that Doug Jones would have tried anything as insane like that, because he'd be like, I can't get away with that because I'm just a Democrat senator. So everybody will be looking at me with a partisan lens. But they were trying to shove Garland down our throats as though Garland was a nonpartisan, as though he was fair and independent because he could have been on the Supreme Court and all this crap. In other words, Garland gave them cover to ransack Melania's underwear. As events transpired, Biden still faced false accusations by Trump of weaponizing as it pursued criminal investigations, which was clearly true. Biden now believes he should have chosen someone else who would have prosecuted Trump even harder, maybe, 8 times instead of 4, who believed Garland was slow to investigate and to eventually prosecute Trump. Okay, that is it. He's admitting we wanted Garland to go after Trump. Garland didn't go after Trump. Now I'm mad. The deliberate pace of the investigation, which eventually resulted in the appointment of illegal Jack Smith, meant Trump was ultimately able to avoid the spectacle of a damaging trial before this year's election. Not really, not for the J6 case. The J6 case dumped out all the material anyways, right? They published a huge appendix, 1,000 pages, whatever that was. It was all a bunch of garbage because the case was garbage. They wanted to try him there. They didn't. They lost the classified documents case. They had a full trial in the New York civil business fraud case. Yeah, with Merchan and Bragg. Full trial on that one. But Smith last month formally applied for both of those cases to be dismissed. So Jack Smith, the illegitimate prosecutor, dismissed his cases, and Biden is upset about it. New York Post confirming the same thing. He regrets. They're pulling from the Washington Post article, but it's coming from his confidants. They say in recent days, the president is saying he should have stayed. He could have won a second term. Answer, no. He was already getting crushed. Remember that first debate? It was over after that first debate. It was game over. Even the Democrats were like, holy crap, that's our guy? That's our candidate? We're like, yeah, that's what we've been saying. He's been the president for 4 years. Hello, where you people been? All right, so Joe is having regrets. Okay, now here he is exploiting the death of Jimmy Carter, former president, saying that maybe Trump should learn something from Jimmy and be a decent person for once in his life.
Decency. Everybody deserves a shot.
What?
Everybody. Can you imagine Jimmy Carter walking by someone who needs something and just keep walking? Can you imagine Jimmy Carter referring to someone by the way they look or they talk? I can't. I think the end of the deal here is that one of the reasons why
You guys can't hear this?
we're looked to by the rest of the world.
What might that be? Let me see. Why can't you hear that audio? Is a good question. Let's try to go into a different browser. All right, let me try something. Hang on one second. We're going over here, popping in here. Me exiting. Okay, let's see if this is back. All right, so we changed browsers. My apologies. All right, let me see if you can hear this now from this dude.
Anything President Trump to take from President Carter?
Decency. Everybody deserves a shot. Everybody. Can you imagine Jimmy Carter walking by someone who needs something and just keep walking?
What?
Can you imagine Jimmy Carter referring to someone by the way they look or they talk? I can't.
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
I think the end of the deal here is that one of the reasons why we're looked to by the rest of the world, for the bulk of our nation, we've laid out what our values are. You said what we believe. It's not just in the declaration we hold these truths to be self-evident, but there's a feeling. The rest of the world looks to us. He was worth looking to. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, one-term president is going to really have sympathy and empathy for another failed one-term president. So that's Joe. Be more decent, like Jimmy Carter was. All right, Joe. Here is what some Democrats are struggling with now that they're recognizing that Joe Biden is a corrupt criminal. We saw over the weekend that there were new photos released that prove everything that we've been alleging and that has been confirmed to us by some of the best experts out there, like Garrett Ziegler, like the whistleblowers, Joseph Ziegler, and others who have shown us that the Bidens are embedded in multiple foreign deals where they're getting millions grifting off of their government power. Now that the photos came out that the National Archives released after the election was over, they were burying those documents for years so that Joe Biden wouldn't be caught with his hand in the cookie jar, in Hunter's cookie jar. Ugh. Now that the election is over, whoops, and Joe Biden lost, those documents are suddenly coming out. And now Abby Phillips over on CNN is having to reconcile with the fact that the Republicans were right, okay? James Comer was right. Everybody who's been calling them criminals and saying that Hunter was grifting off Daddy and Daddy was enabling the grifting, exploiting his position as the vice president and senator and other positions for his family's gain is now revealed, and she's having to reconcile.
I am still waiting.
Speculative?
After 4 years of Donald Trump.
Did money not change hands?
Scott.
Did it not?
4 years of Donald Trump, 4 years of a Joe Biden DOJ looking into these very things. I'm still waiting to see.
He can't be charged. He's the president. Joe Biden can't be charged.
But I'm not talking about charges. I'm still waiting to see the proof of Joe Biden enriching himself. I take his brother and his son, perhaps.
I'll give you the direct line.
Otherwise,
I'll give you the direct
your colleague, James Comer, could have produced the evidence, and he didn't.
He did.
This is Representative Mike Lawler.
A Chinese company transferred money to a shell company owned by Hunter and Jim Biden that then transferred money directly to Jim and Sarah Biden's shell company that then transferred the money to Jim and Sarah's personal account, who then immediately wrote a check for $40,000 to Joe Biden. So to say that there was no evidence, to say there was no evidence is not true. It's not true.
What I'm saying is that Trump was president for 4 years. He wanted to charge Joe Biden. Why did the charges not come? And I think that's still...
He didn't want to charge Joe Biden. Trump was not in there weaponizing all of the institutions against those people. He could have, but he did not. He could have gone after Hillary, Obama. He could have just ransacked everything like the Democrats are doing, appointed illegal counsels and others to do whatever he wanted, but he didn't. He was actually way above that. The Democrats did that, not Trump.
Still remains an open question. If there is something illegal happening here, there should be charges on the basis of what you're saying, and there have not been.
Well,
that is a fact.
He just pardoned Hunter
that is
for an 11-year time period. An 11-year time
He
period.
just wiped the slate.
Hang on, guys. Hang on, guys.
Jim will be next, by the way.
We're waiting for the charges, and when the charges come, we'll have a conversation about that. I promise you that. Solomon Jones, thank you very much for joining us. Everyone else, hang tight. Coming up next.
To a break. All right. So, not happy with some of the truth that's coming out. Why, oh why, if they're so innocent, did Hunter get an 11-year blanket pardon that covers everything, including even potentially dead hookers that he just murdered the day before the pardons? No one knows, but maybe he was. Anyways, who knows what's going on? That's how sick this whole situation is, and never seen that before, where a president just blanketly pardons his son for anything and everything he's did for his decades of crackheadness when he was engaging in international debauchery on taxpayer dollars. So having a hard time reconciling it. No, there will be no charges for Hunter. He's pardoned. We'll see what Joe does for the rest of his family. We'll see if Joe pardons himself or what happens next. But they now are realizing, I think, a little bit, the facade is starting to crack. Their defense of Joe